it's a shame that being gay is a bigger sin and spectacle for Black men than the violence that happened in Dwight Howard's case. Hey, y'all, welcome to an episode of Keepin' It a Bean. Keepin' It a Bean is a podcast that brings authentic conversation, critical dialogue, and interviews, depending on, how we're feeling that time, to the forefront. But we get to do it over a cup of coffee or, as I'm having today, a cup of tea. Look at this mug, y'all. Look at this mug. For those who are watching, the mug says Keeping It a Bean. Shout out to Tasha. I appreciate you. This mug, this design is everything and more. Please make sure you go support that Black woman. I'll make sure to leave all of her information in the description box below. But this mug right here, baby, it looks good. But yeah, so getting into this show, my name is Marquise Davon. Keys, never call me Mark. I don't do that over here in these streets. That's not how I get down. Please and thank you. But if you are new here, welcome to the show. If you are returning, welcome back. I know it's been a while. And let's address it. So I have not been as present with the show, just because a lot of change has been happening in life for me. And so what I realize is, as I'm going through intense amounts of pressure, intense amount of stress or anything, the creative is what kind of takes the back seat for a little bit, because it's just not at the top of priority list. And it was a tough couple of months. Like August through November have just been a time of lots of grief, lots of anger, lots of sadness, and lots of change. And so been sitting down with a therapist, and that's been good to kind of work through the different levels of grief that I've been experiencing, and just a lot of change on the horizon. And so as I have just been growing, I've been having to kind of get my foundation back and set a new foundation of like what my life is going to look like moving forward. So 28 so far for me has just been a lot of figuring out what do I personally want in this time of life right now, but also navigating through 4 different types of grief: parental, relationship, new job on the horizon, and now switching up my apartment and finding a new home. So it's just like a lot of back-to-back things that kind of just was like, all right, take a step back. And through therapy, I got dragged a little bit, y'all. He basically was just like, yeah, your vice is work, and so you tend to work because that's your sense of control, and that's how you can make sense of everything. But that's probably not the healthiest way, because your work is a distraction. It's not actually working through any of your emotions. And so I took a step back and knew that I wasn't able to give my best for a little bit, and I just needed to get back to me. And so these last couple of weeks have been me really getting back to what I love and feeling inspired to do what I love again, and having the energy to do what I love again, and really getting back to it. And so that's really why like the inconsistency has really been there, and this podcast has suffered. I was investing in other projects, but this is the thing that just did not get enough of my time. And so that's why I've been inconsistent, and I haven't been here for a while. But I am excited because I have found my energy again. I have found my passion and my excitement again, and it's exciting to feel like there is something on the other side now. So that's to say a little bit of like what I've been going through. But I'm so happy to be back. I'm also happy to be inspired to create again. I watched the Renaissance film, and that just solidified where I was going, and knowing that I'm gonna be okay. I keep saying this too shall pass, and to see like there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's so much more where I can just reframe and just be like, yes, I'm going in the direction that I want. I'm getting the space that I want. It's here. So yeah, I wasn't gonna say all of that, but now y'all are here and y'all are with me. So I appreciate y'all all the time. I appreciate everybody who's been reaching out, and just some of the content and the photos, and just try to stay present through social media platforms and my events has really been awesome. So thank you to all the people that have been reaching out and just saying, either you miss my content or just the stuff that I've been putting out has been super helpful to them, or just revisiting old episodes has been useful. So I'm super thankful. Thank you all so much. I won't be inconsistent. You have a couple things in the tuck coming, and I'm excited for them to be released and excited for y'all to see so much more of me, especially within the next year. Now, all of that's out of the way. That was not planned, but we here. So let's get into it. And today's episode, I am going to be discussing Dwight Howard. And more particularly, what I'm discussing about Dwight Howard is the way the media has been portraying it and the media responsibility with somebody like a Dwight Howard, right? And I really wanted to bring attention to it because all I've been essentially hearing as I'm going through this Dwight Howard situation is that being gay is worse than assault. Being gay is the worst thing you can do, and being violent is not, right? And that's what I'm learning. And so I'm going to kind of give a couple different examples, but I'm going to really just kind of break it down into a couple different parts. And it's important to talk around the media's recent attention around Dwight Howard because it is been more around this spectacle of what's been going on in this moment to have like a gotcha moment rather than talking around the actual issue at hand. To me, his queerness should be at the bottom of anything that anybody's talking around. His sexuality, I don't even want to name it as queerness, but his sexuality should not be the forefront of many people's conversation. The forefront of the conversation should be the alleged assaults that are happening, right? And that's, to me, it's very alarming. And so I'm going to break it down through the media's responsibility, the public perception, but also how Dwight Howard is also handling this and understanding that people are more invested in outing him than they are actually addressing the harm that he's committed. And that makes me take wonder of like, where are people really at in terms of like what they truly care about, right? And what we deem as socially acceptable and socially deviant. And so the first part is really just steeping into this conversation and understanding the media's role in this. And so when you think around the media's role, they are able to potentially provide facts, but then they can also shape media's perception of any kind of topic. And so when you're really engaging with the media, you need to be as critical as possible. And I've talked about this on a previous episode around just the idea of media literacy, but we are really starting to see what are people actually talking about? What are people actually invested in, right? And so as we are analyzing how media coverage can influence the public's opinion, but even more, it can also perpetuate stereotypes. And so when you look at the role of media, they should be just giving you the who, what, when, where, and how. Sometimes you can get to the why, but that's sometimes the commentator's idea. Like the idea of journalistic integrity requires us to be as objective as possible. So when the public is presented with the facts, our personal ethics can then go in and show us what do we deem as right, what do we deem as wrong? How do we feel about this? But a lot of the time right now, we are in a space where the media and podcasting and cultural commentators, all of this is getting spewed into one thing. And the reality is each person and each entity shares a different role. And so when you look at the media coverage across the board, there are some people who are addressing the actual harm, but there are other people and a lot of people who are addressing, well, is he gay? Does this make him gay? Who's he with? Who's he slaying with? All of this. And to me, I think that has just perpetuated something that's a little bit deeper, right? And so Dwight Howard, he's a public figure, he's a basketball player, but in the scandal of it all, they've been catching him having sex with non-women. And because of that, that has been a little bit more of a spectacle. And a lot of people within the community, they've been like, well, I mean, if Dwight's in the city, then we might be able to catch him. We might be able to see him. We know he's probably up to something. He's doing something, right? People know who this man is. People know and have alluded to it, but have never really like confirmed anything. And that is kind of done with intent, right? There is this space where there is the ethics around outing somebody else. And we don't want to do that because that's anybody else's journey to be able to do this. And so to out somebody does not seem necessarily fair. The media has been speculating, and it doesn't help that it's stuff like the Shade Room or Neighborhood Talk that's really bringing these to the forefront. And these talking points, these media sources are looked at as gossip. They are looked at as like, well, maybe not. right? But people still have a little bit of intrigue, but mostly he's primarily a basketball player. That's a masculine sport. A lot of people are more focused on like, can I be entertained by what this team is doing? But there is a safety of masculinity there, right? And so it's defaulted. Anybody who's in the NBA is straight. That's the assumption. That's the how just the game and the gambit rolls, right? However, as we're going through Dwight Howard's professional career, he's doing what he needs to do. He's a great player, but underneath all of his playing has always been this undercurrent of just like, but are you a little, right? And that's what people have been speculating. That's something to talk around, because at least now that gives me something to gossip about. That gives me something to feel like, ooh, there's a little bit of scandal with this person, which is why it's bringing a little bit more of attention, right? And so as we are going through it, we also recognize that Dwight lives in this space that a lot of queer people exist in, especially queer people who either hold a space of influence or they have a platform, are leaders in the space, or they're a little bit more publicly known, right? A lot of people understand how politics work. People understand how they are treated once their sexuality is brought to the forefront of conversation. And that's very difficult to have to deal with, because we understand that being queer is not a privileged identity. It is a marginalized identity. And so to be a black man in a male-dominated and a masculine-dominated sport, but to also potentially be queer, that takes away a lot. And I'm going to break that down even more. So when we're looking at the societal expectations of black men, it is power, money, sexual domination. All of these are what make up man, right? This is what a lot of people ascribe our masculinity to. And we know it should be a lot more expansive than what it is. But when it is just that, there's a very particular way that black men are going to be policed in terms of how they act. Because if they deviate away from that expectation, then they're sus. Then they're gay. Then this means that you're not man enough. All of this begins to play a role in terms of how black men are ultimately going to be treated if they are not meeting the masculine ideal. And black men are particularly policed heavily in that space. So that's one. Another piece that plays a component into how he operates is being a queer black man in the public eye, allegedly queer, black man in the public eye. But because of this, there's also a different level of scrutiny that he's going to face. And this is a lot of people's apprehension of, what does this mean when Dwight Howard is in the public eye? Because now if you can't particularly pinpoint me and it's only rumors, I can always deny. And so it only becomes speculative. Maybe he might be gay, maybe he's not. But what should we be worrying about his sexuality for? Because at the end of the day, he's just playing his game. He should just be able to play the sport. We don't care what he does in bed. But everybody knows that's a lie. There was a clip of Lil Nas X. He was doing the shot, LeBron's show. And everybody was just like, well, we don't care if you're gay. Like, what took you so long to come out? And Lil Nas X is just like, well, you know.
And with all that early success, you felt it was important to make an announcement recently.
He said he was gay, so what?
Yeah, what's the point? So why did he feel that was necessary? It's not about who cares. That's actually my question. Why do you feel it was necessary to come out and say that?
It's not that it's being forced. It's just knowing growing up, I'm grown up to hate this shit. I'm not supposed to
Grown up to
ever
hate
like
what?
this.
Hate what? Hate what?
Homosexuality, gay
Why?
people. Come on now.
Why are you going to
If
hate
you're really
it?
from the hood, it's not some. So it's if for me, cool dude with the song on top of everything to say this, I'm doing this for attention in my eyes. But if you're doing this while you're at the top, it's for real, and it's showing
it doesn't really matter, I guess. Exactly, it doesn't.
There it is.
And it's just like, well, no, it shouldn't be like that. We don't care. But in reality, a lot of people do care. I said do queer. A lot of people do care. But a lot of people care because they want to have a certain level of power over you. Everybody wants power, right? And so if you are this black man and you're in this sport, but if you're just a little gay, if you're a little different, I can treat you differently. This will now limit your access to spaces. This can also show how people are able to deem you. They can treat you differently. And this leaves you up to harm that you may not want to be able to experience. And that is a choice that anybody's allowed to make. How much of my private life do you get access to? How much of my public life do you get access to? What am I relinquishing as I build out this platform? And what opportunities may be blocked because of this? There are a lot of people who are just like, yes, I will lead in these spaces, but if they understand my queerness, I don't get that power anymore. And I think that's important to break that piece down, especially as we talk about Dwight Howard, because Dwight Howard is not a singular experience. Dwight Howard's a lot of Black men's experience who float between this idea of queerness and being in a public space and wanting to move up in the ladder, but also wanting to keep a certain level of respect, because at the end of the day, I want to hold on to my masculinity. That's what keeps me safe. That's what shows me respect. That's what gets me respect. That's what got me access. And so I'm not going to want to relinquish this thing that has provided me so much access, so much power. That's human nature. And then there are some people who choose to take the responsibility of being able to represent this identity to the fullness. And that's, everybody has their choice in terms of how they want to do that. Younger me did not understand. I said, no, just live who you want to live. Like, this is what you're going to do. Like, no one should care. And ideally, that's what I would love, because I do have hope that humanity can just be as authentic as possible, but I can understand why choices are made. And it took me a while to understand that, and a really good friend was able to really give me that perspective, because, you know, sometimes, you know, niggas get a little self-righteous over here, but it could also just give access to this. And I think this piece is important to really name, like, this is a really common experience on how DL men may be showing up, why some men prefer to keep their relationships under wraps because they understand how the world will treat them. The rest of the world may be like, well, we respect you when we love you. We don't care who you love, da 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 da. But in reality, that is an identity that is still being harmed, that is still being blocked out of spaces. And so if I don't have to confirm anything for you, then it shouldn't concern you, right? Because I don't want to just be associated with that, which leans into the media stereotypes. The media stereotypes when it comes to queer men, when it comes to gay men, is, oh, they're highly sexual. The only thing that we're going to worry about is it's going to be easier to have sex. They're probably a little deviant. They're probably doing all of this stuff that's probably not societally acceptable, right? And so because of that stereotype and media's irresponsibility with this piece, his queerness, or who Dwight Howard is sleeping with, has turned into the most important story. That has become the spectacle. But in reality, the media spectacle is he put somebody in a situation where they were assaulted, where he participated in this, where something was not consensual. He has to reckon with that, because now it has to be taken to court, because now it's up for public opinion. But as he's going on these media circuits, more people are treating his media tour as, let's talk about your sexuality. Let's not talk about the allegations. Let's not talk about that, because what's more important? What gets me more clicks? What gets me more notoriety? What gets people talking? Your sexuality. And the thing is, Dwight Howard understands that, which is why he's able to talk more around, let's talk about what the rumors are. Let's talk around this, but never confirm anything. Let's not lean into this too much. But he understood by leaning into that, it didn't have to worry about the allegations anymore. And everybody fell into it. I was sitting here, I said, one thing I saw on social media where everybody's tweets talking around like, oh, I knew Dwight Howard is this. Oh, we're outing him. Oh, this isn't okay. Oh, that. And I said, we're completely missing the point that there is an assault charge, right? That's important. And so I was like bugged out watching this, because I'm just like, yo, this is what takes more precedent. Being queer is more of a news piece and more important to people than the actual violence that happened. But this isn't going to be perpetuated no matter what, because we've seen it. Especially as you see like the Diddy news, some people are just like, well, has he been with men? Da 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 da. Keke Palmer's mom kind of slipped up and was like, well, it don't matter. Usher's gay. And everybody said, Usher's gay. Da 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 da. Everybody was more concerned around, is this person queer than the offense that was committed. Usher was catching strays. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how Usher got in it. It made me realize this is why so many Black men make an active choice to not even worry about the spectacle of their sexuality, not letting my sexuality be the forefront of everybody's conversation. Let's actually not focus in too much on somebody's sexuality, because that should not be a topic of discussion in 2023. It should not be a big spectacle the way that it is, because it should feel a little bit more normalized, right? But it's not. And so I think as I'm thinking around how they've kind of reinforced that queerness is inherently bad, the media did not do a good job at handling the story. Dwight Howard had an opportunity to really lean into it and really spin everything, because now no one's worried around the violations that he was doing. They're more worried around like, yo, is he gay? And then it will simply pass, because the conversation will shift at some point. More people are concerned with other topics. He no longer becomes a topic of discussion. And so I'm also fascinated by his ability to manipulate public perception through the media tour. Whoever his publicist is, they knew exactly what to do. Don't confirm. Lean into this piece, and we're not going to worry about the other stuff that's going on, so we can leave that back here. I think it's important to really talk around this a little bit more, because it gets into like ethical reporting. People are not obligated to focus on giving the news in the way that the news should be delivered, because we live in the space of the influencer. We live in the space of the content creator. We live in the space of the cultural commentator. And traditional media is having to also keep up. And so where does that line fall, and whose responsibility does this become? I believe that it's everybody's responsibility to be very responsible with their platforms. I think it's important that everybody is responsible and takes a journalistic approach to a lot of this stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to get behind a mic and give you my opinion and give me my thoughts on some shit too. But what people don't realize is that a lot of my work, also I approach it because that's how I was trained to observe the media, how to communicate the media, and how to communicate any kind of news. Give the facts, and then I add on the layer of commentary and giving my opinion, because that's what this platform is all around. Like, that's what podcasters do. We give opinions. We give our thoughts to help shape perspective. And so as I was thinking around my responsibility and what I've seen be pushed, it is now a question of who are we going to get our information from? Why are we going to specific sources? Do we genuinely care around journalistic integrity, or are we more worried around just what will be the most sensational thing we can get out of this conversation? Now, everybody knows my thoughts on it. I know exactly where we're leaning in for this one, but it is important that we are able to kind of decipher when it's appropriate. Sometimes I just want to be entertained. Let's talk about some mess, whatever. And then other times we need to talk around the larger implications of what this means. I do believe that how the media and the public handled Dwight Howard's case was grossly irresponsible. And that needs to be discussed. And that is why we need to continue to push by not thinking that, not allowing homophobia to permeate in the media, especially because we're in an era where so much of it is out here. There's so much queerness to be consumed. There's so many content creators, the Renaissance tour, the music, the shows, everything is there for you to be able to learn, digest, humanize, and then move on, so it doesn't feel as much of a spectacle. But the problem is, it still is. It's a shame that being gay is a bigger sin and spectacle for Black men than the violence that happened in Dwight Howard's case. We should be more focused on that, but we're not. What's more normalized, the violence or the queerness? Which should be more normalized? That's this episode of Keepin It a Bean. I really just wanted to just talk about it. It's been on my mind a lot more. I've been thinking about it a lot more, and I want more of us to be able to engage in the conversation thoughtfully. I want us to engage in the conversation critically and continue to get better around how we are talking about media overall. Homophobia won in this one, and That's really sad to say. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think the Dwight Howard situation was being handled? Do you agree it was mishandled? Let me know. Engage with each other. Like, subscribe, comment, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, whatever you need to do. This is your boy Keese. This is another episode of Keeping It a Bean. Peace.